Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Bacon. Welcome to the show, y'all. Look here, man. Look here. Relly is going through it. He's talking to his uncle. It's not helping in the way that he wants it to because he's confused. He's a child. He don't get it, right? And I want y'all to understand this story in a way that it allows you to help somebody that might be going through this, right? And in that, I think it's worth telling this story because this is a very personal story to me. It's a very personal story. This is a true story that, of course I change the names here and there, but it's relevant because of what's going on out there. I think people are too quick to say, let's hold this juvenile accountable for what they've done without really looking into how they ended up like it. I'm not saying they should not be dealt with because they're doing adult stuff. But I'm saying, please don't lose sight of what it is that put them in that mindset to think that what they're doing makes sense. Understand why they're doing it. Stop throwing that out the window. We always want to throw everything, the baby out with the bathwater without realizing what's going on, because I think the reason that we do that is as adults, we don't want to take accountability for a role we may have played in that. All we want to say is they know better, they should have known better. You feel what I'm saying? But you ain't taught them better. You weren't there. You understand what I'm saying? But anyway, let me get to the story right now. See, really, he's 12 years old. Ain't never been in a fight, ain't never been into nothing like that, right? So he goes to school that next week and he gets into his first fight. And he gets angry, because somebody is saying something about, where your dad at? He ain't never at the games and all this. And he beat dude. He don't even know how to fight. Damn man want to know how to fight, but that rage that's built inside of him gave him that extra energy to knock dude down and just swing as fast and hard as he could. And it hurt the dude. He's bleeding. They had to take him to the hospital. Now they call his mama. She come down to the school and they talking about taking him to juvenile detention, but they say they're not going to do it because they understand, because she's told the counselors at the school what's going on. And they get it, and the principal gets it, but they said, we got to do something about his anger problem. We can't just let him do this and get away with this again. So they put him in a class to deal with his anger management. And they talking to a counselor, and they're working with him, and they're trying to match him up with an adult mentor, somebody that can help him, because they understand what's going on, and they're trying to give her all the help that they can muster. You know what I'm saying? They're doing everything that they know to do. So she calls his dad and she tells his daddy what happened, and guess what this fool did? This fool blamed her. He tells her it's her fault. She want to raise him on her own. She got it. And she going to have to deal with the issues that come with it. And she's like, where are you? You not here. That's why. He said, no, you moved on with your life without me. She said, wait a minute. You telling me that I have to accept being number two for you to even want to be involved in your son's life? She said, I'm not accepting that no more. But you don't have to be with me to help your son and be there for your son. He said, I'm there for my son. She said, when? Where? How? I send them money. I send y'all money to take care of this. She said, keep the money. You just get in his life. He hung up the phone. He can't handle the real like that. He couldn't handle it. Now, she got her son at home and she's sitting in the living room. She's talking to him and he's sitting there crying. Sitting there crying. She wants to be angry with him because he almost got locked up. She can't be angry with him because she knows the source of his pain. And she said, baby, it's going to be all right. And he says to her, he said, where my daddy? How come my daddy don't love me? She had never heard him say that. And it broke her heart into pieces. Broke her. Because there was nothing that she could do about it. And she started to think about the choice that she had made, the decision that she had made years ago to lay down with this man. And she started to blame herself for the circumstances, for the situation that she found herself in with her son. And her son looked at her as if he could read her mind, and he said, Mama, it's not your fault. And I'm sorry that I got in trouble and you had to leave work and come down here to get me out of school. He said, but I didn't know what else to do when he said that about my daddy. He said, I was so mad, I just started swinging and I hit him. And she looked at him, she said, I understand, but you can't do that. Because if they lock you up, what am I going to do? And they hugged each other and they sat there on that couch and they cried. They cried. Then after a few minutes, he got up and he went into his room. He took a shower and he went to bed. And he lay there all night looking at the ceiling, holding his phone, wanting his daddy to call. But he never called. 2 or 3 times he started to text him on his own, but he didn't. And his daddy never called. And he's struggling and struggling and struggling, trying to figure out, why don't his daddy love him? Why is his daddy not in his life? Where is he at? What did he do to deserve this? What did he do? But what he didn't know, that his mom was in the other room playing phone tag with him. She'll call him, he'll answer, they'll talk, he'll hang up. And she just kept doing it over and over and over, to the point where she got so frustrated, she told him, she said, I'm done. I don't want to hear it no more. If you don't want to be in his life, just say it. But she said, I'm not going to have you making him feel like he don't matter. I'm not going to have you doing that, because he's suffering right now. He's going through a lot right now. And you act like you don't care nothing about him. And he said, you did this. You don't want to be with me. I don't want to be with y'all. And she's listening, but her voice was stern, but tears were rolling down her face, because she knew that this was going to be the way the relationship with her son and his father was going to be. It was nothing she could do to protect her son. It's nothing that she was going to be able to do to relieve the pain. So she called her boyfriend, and she was talking to her boyfriend, and she was telling him, look, I know that it's hard, but I need you to be involved more in his life. She called his uncle, you know what I'm saying, her brother, and told him the same thing. She called her pastor, told him the same thing, and they all agreed. Everybody's agreeing that we're going to rally around him. We're going to be there for him. We're going to be there for him. And they all rallied around him. And he would do good in spurts. And then he would start thinking about, whatever event he was at, whether it be basketball, baseball, football, swimming, wherever he was at, he would look around in the stands and he would see the parents, and not his. He would see his mother, his uncle, the preacher, her boyfriend, but not his dad. And it wore on him. And he lost interest in the sports. He lost interest. He didn't want to even do that no more, because if his daddy wasn't going to come to see him, he didn't enjoy it anymore. So he told his mom he didn't want to do any of that anymore. And she was angry with him, because she saw what he was doing. She saw that he was trying to do whatever he could do to get his father's attention. So one day she finally told him, she said, listen to me. He's still 12 at this time. She said, listen to me. You can quit all of this stuff. But if he don't come back into your life, then you're losing, not him. You're losing, not him. And his brain just can't wrap around that. His brain can't wrap around that. What do I have to do for him to love me? He said. What do I have to do? I do what you tell me to do. I do all the things you ask me to do. And he still don't want me. Why did you have me? And she looks at him and she grabbed him and she hugged him. She tell him, she said, don't ever say that again. And he said, I wish you wouldn't have had me. Or I wish you would have had somebody else to be my daddy. And look, listen to me, y'all. To her, that felt like a knife being stabbed into her heart and twisted left to right and pulled out. You feel me? She wanted to lay down and die after he said that, because she knew that he meant that. What he was saying is that he was happy that she was his mother, but he was not happy that she chose dude to be his father. He was not happy about that. And he would have rather not been born than to feel this. Think about the pain that he was feeling for a 12-year-old to express that type of pain in that way. Imagine how he was feeling on the inside. Imagine how he was feeling on the inside. It was hurting him so bad that That's the only words that came to his mind. Imagine that. Imagine that. What do you say to a child that's hurting like that? There are no words that you can say to ease the pain of a child like that. They're suffering like that. So she tells him everything's going to be all right. But she don't know how. She don't know how they're going to be all right. She has no clue as to what to do or how to help him. She has no clue. Doesn't know what to do. So her brother, he comes by and he's talking to him. He's starting to spend more time with him. And he takes him out with him to do different things that they go do. They go to the park. He takes him to the library. You know what I'm saying? When he wants to study, he sits there with him. They read. You know, he's just spending time with him. He's not avoiding him at all. He's staying around him as much as he can. And it's working. It's starting to take hold. His 13th birthday, you know, he talks about, you know, playing some ball again because him and his uncle, they've been going to the park and playing ball and all these different things. And his mom's boyfriend, they're doing all these things, and he can play. The boy is good. He's really, really good at it. But they are afraid that the more they get into it, that it's going to backfire again, because that's what happens. So they don't push him. They just go on to the park, play, and then they go home. They don't ask him about playing again. They don't say any of those types of things because they don't want to hurt him. They don't want him to start to think about his dad in that way, but he cannot think about his dad. He cannot think about his dad. He does. So all out of the blue, all of a sudden, his dad shows up, and he wants to start spending time with him. He wants to take him to his house, and you know, during the summer, this particular summer, and spend time with him. And he agrees, readily agrees. He's like, yeah, spend the summer with my dad. Yeah. He's overjoyed. And his mom was like, okay, maybe he gets it. Maybe he realizes that this is going to be a good thing. He needs to step up. He needs to be in his son's life. Maybe he really is understanding that. So he goes down there. The summer comes. He goes down to his dad's house. He's spending time at his dad's house. And he meets his brothers. He got 2 other brothers. And another one on the way. And he's meeting this side of the family that he's never, ever known. He has 2 older brothers and a younger brother on the, well, sibling. He don't know if it's going to be a boy or a girl. On the way, she's pregnant. And that wholesomeness that was presented to him in the house is what he's always wanted. What he's always wanted. But see, there was a problem. While he was down with his dad, spending time at his dad's house, with his siblings, with his dad's wife, it turns out, his dad wasn't even there. He spent more time away than he did there. But it seemed like it didn't matter because he had his brothers to play with, go to the park and all this. He was just happy, and his dad was there at night when they ate. And he was there that night when they sat around and watched TV and stuff like that. And he's thinking, this is nice. This is what I want, you know? But he had never been around his dad long enough to know that his dad had anger problems. And when it came time for them to go to bed, his dad told them, it's time for y'all to go to bed, get on up and go. They were still in the middle of watching the movie. So him not knowing, he said, can we finish watching the movie? And his dad jumped up, and before he knew it, he hit him in his chest. He said, when I tell you to get up and go to bed, you go to bed. Now his other 2 siblings, they grabbed him and said, come on. But when he hit him in his chest, it knocked the wind out of him. And as they were dragging him by his arm to the bedroom, he was crying and choking and all this and that. And when he got in the room, he was so afraid. He lay there in the dark, crying. And his brothers whispering to him said, look, you're going to be all right. He does that sometimes. He don't mean it. You're going to be all right. So he snuck his phone out, right? And he called his mom, and he cried on the phone and told her mom what happened. She jumped in the car and was on her way to pick him up. And she told him, don't say nothing. When I get close to you, I'm going to call. You come out and you get in the car. She said, and we're leaving. You have your stuff packed. He said, but what? She said, whatever you got to do. When I get there, you get your stuff and you get up and don't you say nothing to nobody. You walk out that house, out that front door and get in the car and we're gone. And that's exactly what he did. When she pulled up, she called him. She turned off her lights. She said, now. He got up out of the bed, didn't wake up his brothers and sisters. His brothers, 2 brothers. Acted like he was going to the restroom, made sure that nobody was in the hallway. His stepmom and dad were in there asleep. He walked to the front door, unlocked the door, and ran down the steps, jumped in the car, and they pulled off. And as they were pulling off, he was looking back. And when he looked back, he saw the light. And he saw the figure of a man, or person rather, in the window. And he knew it was his father because his phone rang. He didn't answer it. And then his mother's phone rang. She didn't answer it. And then the text message came through and it said, don't come back. Ever. And he sat there and he cried as his mom drove down the interstate, and then they got back home a few hours later. He was already knocked out in the car by then, and when they pulled up at the house, she woke him up and they went upstairs to the apartment, and she made sure that he got in his room. He just laid down in his clothes and went to sleep, and she laid there in the bed like not knowing what to do. It's like, what happened? She thought maybe, just maybe, things were going to be different. But they were not. They were not. The next morning, when she woke him up, he got in the shower and he had a bruise on his chest. This is a 12, turning 13-year-old boy, not developed. He was hit in the chest by a grown man with full force, and it bruised him. And she thought about taking a police report out on him, but she decided not to, because she thought that maybe if she did that he would start to resent her, because he was going to have to find somewhere to put this anger, somebody to blame it on. And she didn't want to create a situation where it would be her again. So she didn't do what she wanted to do to protect her son from him, because she was afraid of how he might take it out on her. So she didn't do it. So she talked to him and she told him, you don't have to go back down there again. And he said, I don't want to go back down there. I don't want to go back down there. I don't want to ever see him again. Now, she knew he didn't mean that, but in that moment, she understood why he said it. And she comforted him in as much as she could. And she told him everything was going to be okay. But again, she didn't know how. Now, that wall of resentment is 10 feet tall. It's 10 feet tall. It's full of resentment, disappointment, lies, rejection, all of those types of things. Name it, it's on that wall. And it's hard for a child to know how to break that wall down. Now, he's 14. He turns 13, I'm sorry. He's turning 13 now, y'all. And when he turns 13, he meets some friends at school. And these friends at school are a little bit faster than him. See, he lives on the outskirts. You feel what I'm saying? In a little suburb area, because his mom got a decent job and all this and that. So they live in a little better situation. But these friends of his at school, they living in the hood. It's not an indictment against them, but they got to go faster. You feel what I'm saying? Faster than really does. And if you want to know how this turns out, you're going to have to tune into the next episode, right? This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.